Hello and welcome. Over the last 2 years I have been posting videos of my small 5-inch garden railway, and on the whole they have been well received. So I thought maybe some people might be thinking of building one of their own. Therefore in this video I would like to show you how I built mine, plus some general tips. I'm not an expert, but I have been involved with Model Engineering Club tracks and portable tracks at country shows, and of course I have built my own. I'm not saying this is the only way to do things, but it is the way I do it and it works for me. The first thing to say is, you don't have to build a large permanent railway. If you want to buy some lengths of plastic sleepered track and lay it on your driveway, and run an engine and riding truck up and down, go ahead. If you enjoy that, fantastic. But if you want to build a permanent layout, then here is what you need to do. First, find some suitable ground. Not your partner's or parents' best lawn or favourite flower bed. How big depends on the type of design, and of course how much you want to spend. You can have a simple end-to-end one, or a figure of 8, or what we call a balloon track, which is basically an out, round and back as shown here. Or as my own layout, you can have a complete circuit or circuits. The one thing I would say is that it needs to be as level as possible. Small gradients are okay, but if you have a small engine pulling some people, it might struggle up anything that isn't level. Now to illustrate how to lay track, to quote a television expression, here is one I did earlier. Last year I put in some more track to connect the two sides of my circuit. So having got your ground, mark out with stakes or paint, or as I've done here, string lines, the alignment that you require. Bearing in mind for the track and ballast you need a width of 400 millimeters and overall clearance for your body of at least 600 millimeters. Here I've just marked out the actual rails, but obviously you would need to go either side of that for the ballast, as you can see in the foreground here. Okay, now once you have done that, assuming it is a lawn or gravel or earth, etc., dig or scrape out down by about 50 to 75 millimeters onto something fairly firm. In places on my railway, in order to keep it as level as possible, I had to install some edging on top of the ground and build up in between. Here I've dug out, I've laid some temporary edging and also some temporary track panels just to check the alignment. Now you can lay some weed control fabric, and after this spread a layer of ballast. I used 10mm clean pea shingle because it is small enough to wrap itself round the sleepers and secure them, but large enough for drainage. What edging you use is up to you. You can use timber, bricks, concrete. I've used a type of plastic edging that bends, which I shall show you later on in the video. And now for the track. Originally I used PNP Railways 5/8 inch or 16mm aluminium rail as shown here. I also used their plastic sleepers, again shown here. This is one of their plastic sleepers, hollow underneath, which I shall comment about later, and holes in the top at the proper spacing for their chairs, and there's one of their chairs fitted in. Now the chairs look like this. Now the main pin in the middle there is slightly offset from the actual jaws of the chairs, and that's so you can alter the gauge very slightly, particularly on corners. And there's the how the chair fits in. It just taps in, and the pin opens out once it's through and locks it in place. And here we have a picture of the chair actually in place. Now there's 2 per sleeper, and they are at the correct gauge. Now the rails come in 2.5 meter lengths, and the chairs, before you put them on the sleepers, just slot over the rail, and then you just clip the chairs onto the sleepers, about 22 sleepers per length of rail. So with 2 lengths of rail, 22 sleepers and 44 chairs, you've got yourself one 2.5 meter long track panel. So that's a good way to start. You can build up your track quickly and easily and get the gauge right. There are other suppliers of rails and sleepers other than P&P Railways, and of course there's always eBay. Some people, particularly clubs, use steel for rails, but I think for the average garden railway this aluminium rail that I've shown you is perfectly fine. One problem I have found with plastic sleepers is the tendency for them to lift out of the ballast. That is because they are hollow underneath, as we've already seen. Because of this, I've decided and changed over to wooden sleepers, as shown here. Basically they're bits of tile batten cut into 250mm lengths, and the rail is held down by screws, as you see here. The wooden battens, being solid underneath, tend to be sucked down onto the ballast, and they stay in place much better than the plastic sleepers do. And if you use tile batten, it is already preservative treated as well. But the only thing you'll have to be careful of when you do it like this is to make sure that you get the gauge accurately correct. And I'll show you how to do that now. It's nothing technical. All you do is screw the rail, one rail onto the battens, and then get your gauge, which is simply a piece of wood with some slots cut out at the correct distance. And then with that you hold your rail onto the sleeper and screw the other rail down, and they should be at the correct distance apart. And I've also got a metal one here just to check afterwards that it's completely accurate. And it's as simple as that, really. I mean, basically it's common sense, I suppose. Now you can lay down your sections of track and join them with some joiners, or fish plates to give them their correct term. These are 2 pieces of metal that you put either side of the rail. They come already pre-drilled with 4 holes, but you will have to drill the rail out yourself, and then you just bolt them on. You can get these joiners from the same place that you get your rail from. And then once you've done that, you can pour some more shingle onto the track and then lift the track as required to get it level. Then run a broom along, sweeping the ballast so it fills up at the sleeper ends and is level with the sleeper tops. If you find you have lifted the track too high, you can wiggle it about and push it down, but remember to firm the shingle underneath the sleepers. This is what tampers do on the real railway. Now, what about curves? Now, the tightest radius curve I use is 2.4 meters, or about 8 feet. Now, this is important depending on what you're going to run. I run 040 engines and a large engine with bogies. But if you're going to run a large engine with a long wheelbase, or a steam engine with 3 coupled axles, you will require a radius much larger than 2.4 meters. so bear this in mind when planning your railway. Now obviously to make curved track you need to bend the rail. Now you can buy a rail bender, but I'm a bit tight, so I do it by hand by either bending it over my knee or using a brick wall and a post like I've done here, and just work your way along the rail every few inches. Remember, when laying curved or straight track, you must get it level without any twist. Also on curves the gauge needs to be fractionally wider than straight track. You could also add a bit of cant to your curves. Real railways do this to counter centrifugal force, but on this layer it helps to force the loco to hug the inside rail, as if not they sometimes try to ride up onto the outside rail. Another way of avoiding this is the use of check rails as seen here. The check rail bears on the rear face of the wheel of one side and then stops the other wheel from riding up onto the rail, onto the outside rail. Either check rails or cant are more important on sharper curves. Easier curves probably won't need either. Now what about points? Well, you can buy them, but they're not cheap and they only come in certain sizes. So I wanted bespoke ones and I've made them myself, which you can do if you've got a reasonable amount of practical skills and you can safely use a small mini grinder or a bench grinder. Now once you've laid your track and you're happy with it, just push a wagon or riding truck round and see how it feels, and then get your engine and off you go. Now I did want to talk about edging. This is the stuff I've used. It's a plasticky type of thing. It comes in a 25-meter roll and it's very good for curves because you can bend it round any type of curve like this. But the only trouble is, in the summer when the sun shines on it, it warps and you just get, instead of a straight nice piece, you just get a wavy line. I mean, this shows it here not quite as well as in the summer because it's still quite cold. One day I might get round to doing a proper brick edging, but it's quite a daunting task. Another point to remember regarding summer is high temperatures can cause the track to distort slightly and you might find you're derailing more than you normally do. You just have to wait till it cools down. So there you are. I hope this has been of some use to you, and no matter what size railway you have, I hope you enjoy it. Please put any questions in the comments, and thanks for watching.